are you feeling today? Let's hear it for Writers Week. Woo! Shout out to my 7th hour up front here. You guys rock. I'm going to get us started just by congratulating our cheer team who will be competing in the IHSA State Finals this weekend. There is a send-off, but in lieu of that, we'll just give them a round of applause right now. Woo! So just going to start by sending a quick thank you to a few groups, our Viking boosters, the Fremd administration and faculty, the Fremd English department, especially Mrs. Ink and Mr. Anderson for helping to put this all together, and of course the wonderful students. You guys are always a great audience. Thank you so much for your participation and enthusiasm. Let's keep that going. So now it is my pleasure to introduce our next guest. Kwami Embalia is a husband, father, writer, and a New York Times bestselling author, and a former pharmaceutical metrologist. I can barely say it, so you can ask him about it later. His debut middle grade novel, Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky, was awarded a Coretta Scott King Author Honor, and it's part of a series along with 2 other titles, Tristan Strong Destroys the World and Tristan Strong Keeps Punching. He's the co-author of Last Gate of the Emperor and the editor of the #1 New York Times best-selling anthology, Black Boy Joy. A Howard University graduate and a Midwesterner now in North Carolina, he survives on dad jokes and Cheez-Its. Without further ado, please help me in welcoming to our Writers Week stage, Kwami Embalia.
Can I take this off the stand so I can wander around? Thank you. I am exhausted. Let me make sure I don't block the actual display. My name is Kwami Embalia. Thank you so much for having me. There is so many other things you could be doing, but you have chosen to spend your time with me. Either you volunteered or you were voluntold. Either way, I really appreciate you being here. I normally do not do slideshows. I love, because I don't like just standing up and talking at you. I'd rather talk with you. So if at any point you have questions, you are free to raise your hand, and I will stop whatever I'm doing mid-sentence, mid-word, mid-syllable, and we will answer your questions, because I'd much rather engage with you rather than stand up and shout. You are actually not allowed to ask questions until the end. Thank you. You gonna work on your book? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I normally don't do slideshows, but I put this one together just because I was running on 3 hours of sleep, and I was like, just so I sound semi-coherent, as evidenced by the title, Who is Kwami Embalia? Please tell me, because I live in a state of perpetual toddler wrangling and exhaustion, sometimes simultaneously. So this is me, and you see the lovely picture there at the bottom. Those are my parents. This is at the release for Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky, my debut novel. I did this in New York back when we were still doing school or book tours. And that moment, if I look dazed, it's probably because I never dreamed that I would write a book, let alone publish a book. People always ask me, I always get the question, when did you know you were going to be a writer? Did you set out to be a writer? The answer is no. I did not want to be a writer when I was growing up. When I was in, I think, 3rd grade is when I can remember my earliest thoughts. When I was in 3rd grade, I wanted to be a marine biologist. I wanted to save whales and sharks and all sorts of sea life creatures. And then I realized how scary the ocean is. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to stay on land. So I am going to be what's called a conservation ecologist. I'm going to work on saving the ecosystems. I'm going to preserve the elephant habitats and make sure the deer on Bald Head Island are safe from hunters. It's going to be amazing. And then in graduate school, I got to go on my first trip into the interior woods of Bald Head Island, and 3 things happened to me on that trip. The first is that I fell through a floating mat of dead vegetation. So there are these dead weeds and grasses and stuff that have knit themselves together, and they float on the marsh. And small animals and small birds can make their homes on there, and it's great. It's fun. Ecosystem. Yes, life. Love it. It was not built for me. And so when I stepped on it in my Timberlands, I went straight through. And it's about the size of this stage. No one could come out to rescue me. I went there with 3 other students and a professor. No one could come out and rescue me because they would also go straight through. So I had to literally claw my way to survival. Still don't know how I made it. I think I lost at Timberland. But it was, so that's incident number 1. This all happens on the same day. Incident number 2, so when we walk out to the marsh that we're studying, it was cold, it was cloudy, and we walked along a set of railroad tracks to the marsh. And then when it was time to leave, it got warmer, the sun had come out. Do you know what animal loves lying on warm railroad tracks? Shout it out. Shout it out if you know. A snake. And so we had to, what took us 5 minutes to walk out, took us an hour to get back, because we had to watch where we stepped, because there were 50 to 60 copperhead snakes lying on the tracks and in and around the tracks. Terrifying. They're quick, they're camouflaged, they're tiny, they're large, absolutely scary. And then finally, the third event, the pièce de résistance of Kwami Embalia's horrific outing, was the fact that I came home covered in ticks. My wife wouldn't let me in the house. I had to strip on the front step, and she handed me out like one of those pot scrubbing brushes, those metal bristle brushes, to scour me in the garage so that I could remove all the. I wanted to save the earth. Now I'm like, I don't care about the. No, I care about the earth. But that's what I wanted to be when I was younger. And I always tell people that because for some weird reason, we're expected to know everything about our life. We're supposed to have it planned out at such an early age. And I'm like, no, I've had 4 career changes from in the last 6 years, I want to say. I only became a full-time writer in January of 2020. So that's, a little over 2 years. Before that, I was a chemist, I was a pharmaceutical metrologist, biologist. None of those felt right. And yet I was supposed to have this career. And we don't know, I still don't know what life holds for me, right? And yet we're expected, we have all of these expectations. A very lovely young lady came up to me at the end of the last period and was like, how do you make these decisions? And I was like, well, lots of crying, lots of tears, having a good support network, of which Mark is a part of, having people to talk to, like my wife. I will literally sit with my toddler and have deep conversations. He's not even 2. He can't speak. The words he says are eat, eat, eat. That's one word. He thinks eat is actually repeated 3 times. Eat, eat, eat. And no. Those are the only words. But we will have deep, profound conversations as I talk through decisions that I'm trying to make. Do I take this? Do I go here? Do I want to leave my job? And he's like, no. And I was like, well, I don't trust your decision-making processes because you tried to eat a fork earlier. So all of that to say, like, this right here, I am dazed in this picture because I don't know how I got to this point, except for the one fact that has stayed consistent throughout my life is I love stories. I love telling stories, reading stories, consuming stories. Yes?
What did you study in college to have you?
I was a bio major and I was a chem minor. Okay. So, fun fact, I did not know the field of metrology existed when I was going. Nobody told me about that. But if you take chemistry, if there's anyone in here who's interested in chemistry, there are so many different fields you can diverge into just via chemistry, whether it's food science, biochem, so I worked in a job that's called pharmaceutical metrology. If you have ever taken Tylenol, If you ever had asthma and you've had to take an inhaler, I worked with the companies that manufactured that, and I made sure that the equipment that they manufactured it on was working correctly. Because the last thing that you want is to have a headache and you're supposed to take 50 milligrams of ibuprofen, but the medicine is only giving you 40. Or you're in about the early stages of having an asthma attack and you're supposed to have, 2 sprays will give you 150 milligrams of albuterol, which is a common asthma drug, and you're only getting 100. Neither of those disparities help you. And so we make sure that the equipment the drug is being manufactured on is working correctly. But yeah, I didn't know that existed. I thought, I had to traipse through a field following deer and covering it in ticks. This is not a serious photo. So this is at a literary festival called Y'all Fest. That tiny, diminutive person you see laughing into her hands behind me. I'm blindfolded, as you can see. And my hand, you know the game where you reach in, you can't see, and you're supposed to try and identify what it is just by texture? Some people got noodles, grapes. I got a bowl of mayonnaise. And that face is being made because I don't like it. And are any of you familiar with the author Nick Stone? Yep. So Nick Stone, the author of Dear Martin, came up behind me and shoved my hand into the bottom of the bowl of mayonnaise. And the texture is one thing, horrible, but the smell lingers forever. It is the gift that keeps on giving. And that is why that face is being made. I don't know why I put it in the slideshow, just to let you know that it's not all sugar cookies being a writer. Sometimes you get mayonnaise-inflicted doom. I put this in here because as a writer, I get ideas all the time. People will be like, well, where do you get ideas from? And sometimes I'm like, well, I'll see, a particular painting, or I'll listen to a piece of music. Sometimes it's just, walking and I get a fragment of an idea, and it's how do you know that whether it's a book idea or whether it's, something that can be added on to something you're already writing, or if it's just terrible, it's trash, and the idea isn't worth it. And for me, it's how long I tend to think about it. If it's lingering with me, if it's something that's just hovering. And even still, I'll give myself a time frame. I'm like, all right, write one chapter of what you think this idea could be. And then if you want to keep going, write a synopsis. Where do you see this book going, right? Because so many of us get enamored with ideas, but they don't turn into books. Yes? Have I ever started writing a book and was just like, this is not working out, right? Yes, a lot. I don't know how many. I have, so what I do is I'll open up a Google Drive document, and that's where I'll start my first fledgling ideas that I think could turn into a book. I've lost count. I've had to start a new Google account to keep track of some of just pure book ideas. It happens all the time. Now, what might end up happening is maybe I'm not ready to write that story, or maybe it isn't a story. Maybe it's just a subplot of another story. I've gone back to that folder and pulled out characters, pulled out plot lines, pulled out settings, and added them to different stories because they help to build upon something I was already working on. So I have abandoned there's nothing wrong with stopping writing a story, not because you aren't committed to it, but because it's just not working out. Sometimes the best thing you can do, that doesn't mean you stop writing, that means you just move on to something else. However, you cannot use that, what we call the shiny idea, as a reason to stop working on something because it's difficult, or you don't like, or it's hard to process, meaning you've put your characters into a complicated scenario, or you're dealing with deep and complicated topics, and it's a little scary. As writers, we have to really put ourselves into the world, into the shoes of our characters, and we have to delve through sometimes some pretty tough topics. Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky is a metaphor for the Mid-Atlantic slave trade. Last Gate of the Emperor is co-written with Prince Yoel Makonnen, who is the great-grandson of the last Ethiopian emperor, and deals with the invasion of Ethiopia by Italy. So there are some really tough topics that we can dive into as writers. We can't use that shiny idea, that new idea, as an excuse to stop because we don't want to confront these tough topics. And you have to judge. I still do it. Am I hesitant to write because I don't know where this book can go, or I'm stuck, or it's just not a book-worthy idea? Or am I hesitant to write because I'm scared of what I have to write next? And that's something that only you can answer. Books I wish I wrote. So only one of us here has written a Star Wars novel. However, if I had written a Star Wars novel, it would be called Tired I Am: How Jedis Use the Force to Write Books. Because it is absolutely, it can be exhausting at times. I don't think there's anything we'd rather be doing, but it can be absolutely exhausting because sometimes it's not the writing itself, it's everything around it. So, Mark was talking earlier about how, the first thing that he deals with in the morning are emails, and how we get so many emails. Some of them are wonderful, like, hey, can you come down and talk to the students about yourself and tell them horrifically about your experience with tics. Sometimes they're fan mail, or thank yous for coming out to do a visit. Other times they're just logistics. So I did the Black Boy Joy anthology, and one of the things I didn't know about an anthology is, you pay the contributors through an anthology, but as the editor, as the organizer, I have to manage that. It doesn't go through the agency, so I have to bring the money in, and I have to distribute the money. I also have to take care of the taxes and everything that go with that, especially if some people don't give me their W-9s on time, and I have to file, and it's all of these logistics that go into that. And I haven't even sat down to start working on what I need to write for the day. So, exhaustion. Hashtag beef. The top 10 food feuds. All right, I don't know if this is awesome. First of all, if you ever get a chance to travel to Charleston, South Carolina for the Y'all Fest, Young Adult Literary Festival, do so. The shenanigans there. This is also there. However, I am fascinated with the idea of people arguing over what's the best version of a particular dish. I love it when I used to go to cookouts or family reunions, and two people bring the same dish, and seeing who's people like more, because the people who are eating are going to judge it, like whose macaroni is the best, who fried their fish the best, who made the best pasta salad, whose apple pie reigns supreme. So I would love to just write a chronology of the top 10 food feuds and all of the drama that goes with it. All right, this is near and dear to my heart, okay? This book would be called Fake Friends: The Untold Story of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and suddenly, now the other reindeer love him after they used to laugh and call him names and wouldn't let poor Rudolph play in any reindeer games. Those reindeer, they love him? Fake. They're all fake. They're fake. I could, ideally, this would be a picture book that you could read with the young children in your life during the holiday times. Fun fact, Mark actually took that picture at our very first writing retreat that we did together. I am very passionate about this, though. This might actually turn into something really worthwhile. Intruders. Using video games to practice lying. How many? Raise your hand if you've ever played the game Among Us. The sole mechanic. I used to want to be a video game developer, and there's this idea that you should have one to two main video game mechanics that make the game fun, right? Whether it's a battle royale and it's the looting mechanic, and then the closing circle, the playing circle that you play within. Whether it's the what game is it? The Halo that just dropped, and they have the new grappling mechanic or whatever. Halo Infinite. And in the game Among Us, you have to lie to each other. You have to. There's one person who's an intruder, and they have to lie, and that is what the game is about. Now there's other things. It's a community game. It's very simple to play, very simple to learn, difficult to master. But I love how there are these what we call emergent behavior that happens as a result of a game, something that developers didn't intend on. I'm sure they were like, you gotta disguise who you are, but the lengths that I have been lied to by my friends when playing this game, like entire backstories. I couldn't have been the intruder because my dog just got sick and I was AFK. I was away from my keyboard. I couldn't have stabbed what's her name in the vent. I couldn't have vented or whatever. Just the extravagant nature, and yet how it has really drawn people together. Especially as someone that could, you could play it online, you could play with your friends during the pandemic. This game is absolutely amazing, and yet it's just solely built around lying. I find that utterly fascinating. All right, and I think I have one more book that I wish I wrote. Yes. The Insiders should have been written by Kwami Embalia, because it is an absolutely amazing book. You might see someone blurbed at the top. It's probably too small for you to read. But the person who blurbed it said it is sometimes hilarious, sometimes devastating, but always full of heart. It is funny, it is sad, it is amazing. Everyone in here should read The Insiders, whether it's a middle grade book or not. I think it's something that everyone could take something away from. I absolutely, I should have written it. No, I would not. Someone else, absolutely. I am not in the book. It is never legally established. Books I actually wrote, so let's... Okay, wait. I had this slide at the last second. All right. What is it like to publish a book? It is a complicated duality of emotions. All right, that is the phrase that I want you all to hold on to as we move to this next slide, okay? A complicated duality of emotions. I think that accurately describes at any one state how I am fluctuating on an emotional basis. It is exhilarating, and yet I want to cry so much. It's like, I never know. There's a little meme, GIF, or whatever it is, of the kid who starts laughing, and then he just immediately breaks down into tears. That's me on a Monday. It's just, everything is great. I get to do this for a living. It's wonderful. This is horrible. No one's going to like this book. I can't believe that I decided that this is what I wanted to write about. But it's great. They're paying me. It's horrible. What if they want the money back? It's just, flip-flop, tears and laughter, same time, amazing. Just to show you the books. All right, so this is my first book, which we pitched as the middle grade American Gods. If you've ever read Neil Gaiman's American Gods, or you watched I think it's Showtime, the Showtime show. It is a book about a young black boy who is dealing with grief, the loss of his best friend, who accidentally rips a hole into another realm where African American folk heroes like John Henry, you see on the cover, and Br'er Rabbit exist with West African and East African mythological gods and goddesses like Anansi, like Nyame, the sky god, and he has to find his way home. This book deals with grief and I mentioned it deals with the Middle Atlantic slave trade, and it deals with the folk heroes and folk tales that I grew up listening to that I wanted to really write a book about. But the grief is the most important because I feel like when we are talking about grief, we always talk about it as something that we have to get over, and you don't get over grief. It's more you get along with it. You make room for it inside of you. It may shrink, it may grow from day to day, but grief is something that needs to be talked about rather than shunned, because that is the only way we're going to process it healthily. Yes? Have I met any besides Mark? I was telling one of your teachers on the ride over, I did get to meet them in person. I was on the Book Expo of America, which is this big book convention that happens in New York. We did a virtual, for 2020, everything was virtual, so I was on a panel. It was me, it was Judy Bloom, it was Natalie Portman, right, that's her name? Padme? Yeah, Natalie Portman, and Misty Copeland, who had all written children's books. There's Rick, of course. And what's funny is that, you meet a lot of, and they're just like normal, just normal people who are like, you're going to eat the rest of your biscuits or whatever, and it's like, no famous author who I've analyzed but now suddenly have questions about, please have the rest of my biscuits. So yes, I've met, I think my children, my oldest daughter specifically, was the most excited about when I met Raina Telgemeier, who wrote like Smile and Guts and those middle grade graphic novels. What's it, Chris Colfer? I think that's his name. Everybody on the Rick Riordan imprint, pretty much, Carlos and Roshni and Rebecca and Jen. So like we've all, met on several occasions. I don't know if there's any like super famous. Veronica Roth, I think, once. And Tony, and a few others. But like they're also normal and ridiculous at times. Not you, you are like, you're abnormal. And we love that about you, Mark. Well, why aren't you normal? Second book, Tristan Strong Destroys the World. So each one of the Tristan Strong trilogy deals with a particular theme. Grief, this one is trauma, and the third and final one, Tristan Strong Keeps Punching, deals with anger and how we control those emotions and how we process emotions, because grief and trauma and anger are all things we are going to run into repeatedly, and rather than ignore them or tell us to deal with them or tell us to man up and don't show them, these are things that we should be confronting and talking about and discussing frequently. So I also co-wrote a book. I don't know if this is what your experience was like, but co-writing a book, you share everything because you want this story to be the best that you could be, but you're also two writers who are merging two completely different points of view, or no writer has lived the same life, and yet you're coming together to tell this particular story. So writing Last Gate of the Emperor with Prince Yoel Makonnen was a unique experience, especially as someone who's African American, and Yoel, who is Ethiopian, merging different lived experiences to try to tell this story about a boy who's trying to find his own place in life after being told stories about what he thought was his real life or whatever. We are going to try. Amazing, absolutely amazing. We are going to try, and we're going to see if this works. I hope it's not too loud. Guard your ears just in case it is. This is the book trailer for Last Gate of the Emperor. All right, maybe?
Life on Astronaut can be kind of boring, except when I'm playing the Hunt for Caleb's Oculus, the best game ever. But then my HKO login triggers a real-life attack on the city, and my Uncle Lucy disappears. Could those crazy stories my uncle told me about a galaxy-spanning war actually be true? Now it's up to me, my bionic lioness, and a rival turned ally to find my uncle and save Alice Prime.
So when we first came up with Last Gate of the Emperor, we pitched it as, playing Fortnite in Wakanda, which were at the time two of my favorite immersive experiences. And it's all about, it's all about video games and how we throw ourselves into them to kind of connect. Especially, I don't know if any of you have done this. Some of my best friends have been made either online, either through a video game or just through social or whatever. That's where I've met some of my greatest friends. I am in, I don't know how many writing groups where we've never actually met, all of us have never actually met in person. And yet, I share my accomplishments, we console each other, we go through the entire writing process together. The Last Gate of the Emperor is about how we forge those connections, whether they're in person, whether they're digitally, through the video game that we invented for it called The Hunt for Caleb's Obelisk. The research for this, writers do research. I had to play a lot of video games. I didn't want to play a lot of video games. It was not my design to play a lot of video games, but I had to. At least that is the excuse that I gave my wife when I was up to 3 a.m. playing Apex Legends. All right, this is the sequel. This isn't actually out yet. This comes out, you guys can't even really see the, here we go. This comes out in July. It's called The Royal Trials, the second book in the duology, where Yared returns to a familiar place to fight an unfamiliar foe and save his family. I don't know if you recognize these two phrases, 1v1 me, you cowards, and then he's pushing, where's my team, where's my team? If any of you do recognize those, and you can tell me what it's from, I have books up here that you can win after the session is over. But this comes out in July. I'm super, super excited about it. Yoel and I got to work together again. It's amazing. I love the cover. Sator Fiadze, I want to say his name is the cover artist, and he did both the previous cover and this one. And I absolutely, all of my covers, I take to FedEx Kinko's and I get a 2x3 foot poster made of them, just because I've been really fortunate and I've loved every single one of my covers and the diversity that they display on the actual book cover. And finally, this is the last book that has come, or the second to last book that came out. Black Boy Joy came out in August of last year. It is an anthology. You mentioned, what other famous authors had I working with. We got Jerry Craft for this book. We got Jason Reynolds for this book. Lamar Giles. But I think what I was most excited about for this book was that we actually ran a contest to publish 2 previously unpublished middle grade, authors or writers who had written in middle grade space. Never written before. It was amazing. We gave them their first publishing credit, and it was just absolutely, absolutely fantastic. This is also the easiest a book has ever come together, other than paying authors and dealing with taxes. This is the easiest a book has ever come together for me, just because everyone was so excited about the concept to work on it. From the publishing folks, from the writers, from the marketers. It was just an amazing, amazing experience. And finally, this is this comes out in August of this year. This is Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky, the graphic novel that was adopted by Robert Venditti and illustrated by Olivia Stevens, who I'm a huge, huge fan of. I'm so excited about this because it is just a new way for a new audience to experience this story. And the way that Olivia rendered some of the passages within the book, it's incredibly beautiful. Gun Baby is amazing. And I'm so excited for people to get a chance to read this version of the story. And then this is me with my hero / icon / the person who told me that writing was a possibility. That is my mother. She raised the 4 of us. She also was an English professor She also co-wrote an English textbook, and she was also a novelist. She did all those things while somehow keeping the four of us, along with my father, in reasonably good mental working order. And so I always put her at the end because that is what I aspire to be when it's all said and done. Hopefully, my children will look up to me the way that I look up to her. All right, that is me running off at the mouth. I think we have time for a few questions, if anyone has them, about the writing process, about why Apex Legends is better than Warzone, about what my favorite writing snack is and why is it Cheez-Its. Any question that you may have about any of that, let her rip. Octane. She asked, what is my main in Apex? Octane, and then followed by Lifeline. Those two, although Loba is becoming a fan favorite just because she is absolutely amazing. So, but Octane for sure is always my first choice. And yeah, no, yes.
So when you're staying up late writing, do you prefer coffee or like an energy drink? And if so, what's like the flavor of energy drink or like the style?
I run on the chaotic fumes of existence. I cannot drink coffee post 2 p.m. because it like gives me like heartburn or something. I might start drinking tea. I can't do an energy drink because I will not sleep at all. I will not. Energy drinks, I learned this out in college. I cannot do Red Bull or anything Monster or any of those because I will be up for 72 chaotic hours and nobody in the world needs to experience that.
So what's the thing with Cheez-Its?
Cheez-Its, how long do we have? Cheez-Its are sublime. They are absolutely amazing. Anyway, but Cheez-It grooves, specifically white cheddar Cheez-It grooves, are fantastic. Listen, teachers, because this is very important. There are mathematical principles as to why Cheez-It grooves are superior. It is because the rippling grooves allow more surface area for the seasoning to gather, meaning you are getting more flavor per bite than you would with any other snack. That is why I submit to you Cheez-It grooves, specifically white cheddar Cheez-It grooves, should be freely provided to all students at the end of the day. That felt good. That felt good. All right, any other questions real quick before we have to end? Yeah. Yes. Have I learned what Red Bull does to me the hard way? Red Bull it doesn't give me wings. Red Bull gives me nightmares. It turns me into a nightmare. Anybody else?
We got one.
Yes.
So follow up the Cheez-It question. Have you tried the Cheez-It Puffs?
No. Cheez-It Puffs? They make Cheez-It Puffs. They might make this a regional thing, but I'll tell you what I did try for the brief period of time where it existed. What are you doing? Were you eating? And they're not Cheez-Its. Boo this man. Tomato. Whatever. Very brief. I think it was Pizza Hut had the Cheez-It pizza. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing creation. All right, I think we got time for one more before we have to dismiss. Anybody? Maybe? Yes? No? Yes? Yes. My favorite who? Oh. The book? Do you know how long it's been since Mark, who's your favorite Outsiders character? Okay, Mark doesn't want me to answer that question. You know what? I will reread the book. It'll take me like 5 hours. I will reread the book and I will let you know specifically. All right. Good? Yeah? Nope, one more. Yeah. Can you relay back that that down? So where did I find, so like research and stuff for Tristan Strong? I will tell you what, 2 or 3 of the most profound characters within Tristan Strong, including the 2 villains that are in the book, and some of the monsters that are in the book, came from my visit to the National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C., which is why I always say consume art of all forms, because you never know what will inform your own art as you create it. All right, I think that's it. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much to Kwami Embalia. If you want to come down and say hi, feel free. You're a great audience, 7th hour. See you tomorrow.